Okay, get yourself ready for your morning practice. So have a cushion or some blocks to sit on and come into a good cross-legged position. Just have a little wriggle about, make sure that you're feeling even, and then hold onto your knees. Hold onto your knees and lift up into the heart area, drawing your shoulders down. Look down at the floor, look at something that isn't moving. Soften the jaw and the tongue and the throat. Focusing on long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and exhalations. Filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. Feeling the chest rise upwards and outwards with the in-breath, and then exhaling from the top of the lungs to the bottom, taking the chest with it, down and relax. But of course, it's the inhalations that bring in fresh energy. So take deep, conscious inhalations and exhalations. Just looking at something that doesn't move on the floor so that your eyes are still in the sockets. And then release your knees, bring your hands into Namaste. Maintaining the consciousness of your breath. Allow your eyes to gently close. Just listening to the sound of your breath as it enters and as it exits. Very gently draw your chin down to meet your chest, lifting your chest to meet your chin. Just spending a little time to observe how you're feeling right now, and just a little time to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. And then release the backs of your hands down towards your knees and just come back into a seated position. Sorry, I think I forgot to put my microphone on. You could hear me okay. So lift up into your chest, elevating your heart area up to the ceiling, drawing the chest upwards, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Just again, fill the lungs from the bottom to the top, just feeling the freedom of full lungs. And then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across and your ribs and your shoulders, just acknowledging any resistance. So acknowledging whether the resistance today is different to how it was feeling yesterday or last week. Just spending a little time inside the pose, just observing where the body responds. And move beyond that resistance and that initial sensational response, and draw your consciousness into areas like the tips of the toes or the tips of the fingers that present minimal or no resistance. Just feeling the freedom of those specific areas. And then come back to the center, lift up into the chest, elevate the heart area upwards. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across and your ribs and your shoulders. And then come back to the center. Just hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest and draw your shoulders down away from your ears. And then just come off your lift and then come down onto your knees. Just let your legs relax into this pose of virasana to start off with. Just feeling how you kind of sandwich the thighs and the shins together, the thighs and the calves. Lift up into the chest. Elevate the heart area upwards, just letting the legs be passive initially. Just letting the legs sink into the floor. Just observing perhaps how the body is evenly placed, just moving the heels out to the sides, just so that you can really make levelness at the hips. And then consciously push the shins into the floor, push the shin bone into the shin skin, so that the thighs activate, so that there's almost a feeling that the knees want to push away from each other. And then elevate up into the spine. Observe how much more length you achieve in the spine as you come forward, lengthening the front chest. If you've got a bad back, then you can come forward onto a bolster, or just stretch yourself forward along the floor, and then keeping the heart area lifted, keeping the chin and the chest lifted, bring the forehead down. Keep the arms extending away. Keep the tailbone drawing down towards the heels. Just listen to the breath. Keep filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. Emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. Sometimes if you let the chest drop, it can become difficult to fill the lungs in Adho Mukha Virasana. So keep lifting the chest even though the head is down. You're moving the chest towards the chin. So it almost becomes Jalandhara Bandha. So consciously bring the chin into the chest in Jalandhara Bandha. Lift the anal sphincter towards the diaphragm region, the Mula Bandha. And take some deep inhalations, deep exhalations. And then release Jalandhara Bandha, Mula Bandha, come up onto your knees, turn your toes under, and then come up into dog down. Activating the legs, activating the arms. So my mat has become really separate, which is very annoying because it's new. So push the hands consciously into the floor, press the palms consciously into the floor. Lift the seat bones, lift the tailbone so that you can draw the shoulder blades in towards the front chest. As you inhale, aim to inhale into the back chest as well as the front chest. Aim to breathe into the side ribs in the armpit region. So inflating the lungs in 3 dimensions. Drawing your attention inwards and just observing whether your body is evenly activating or there's more action on the left side than the right or vice versa. And then step your feet forwards, come up into standing position, and then get the blocks for your hands for half uttanasana, just to really activate the legs. Bring your feet as wide apart as your mat, as wide apart as the mat, turning your toes inwards, and then activate the kneecaps, draw the kneecaps through to the backs of the knees. Turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. Have your hands on your hips and lift up into the heart area. Presenting the chest to the sky. Squeeze the elbows towards each other behind you. And then hinge at the hips, keeping the legs straight, keeping the back straight, keeping the head lifted. until you're halfway, and then reach down and find the blocks. Bring the blocks underneath your shoulders. So just be on your fingertips, but relatively lightly on your fingertips. So you don't push all of your weight into your hands. You push the legs back so that your weight goes into your heels. Breathe even and deep inhalations and exhalations. The priorities here are straight legs, straight back. Sometimes in a class, I'll see people doing it like this. And it's like, well, this doesn't do anything. It doesn't feel good for starters, and it just actually makes you can't really breathe very well. So straight legs, tilt in the tailbone up to the ceiling, projecting the chin and the chest forward. Straight legs, straight back. If you can go down lower, then do. If you've got a bad back, then just stay at a position, a higher position that feels like it's not straining, but just feel that for yourself. I've had a bad back of late, and it's not 100% right yet, but it's kind of 90%. But every now and then I kind of twinge it. So sometimes you can just observe for yourself what is possible. So if you can come down a little lower, then do, but don't strain yourself, don't injure yourself. Keep really observant of your body's response to the pose. And if it doesn't feel right, if it feels like it was easier to extend the spine away with your hands on the blocks, then do. It's not a competition. So I feel I can reach the floor without aggravating my back, but there isn't the same lift of the seat bones that I can usually achieve when my hands are on the floor, so I'm coming a bit higher. So it's this pratyaharic consciousness of the intellectual body observing the physical body. So we know what the body can do because we've all here been doing yoga for a long time. We know how the body feels when the body is in good positions. We know how the body feels when it's in uncomfortable, awkward positions. So we use the body's intelligence to read whether or not we need the blocks. If you can reach around the backs of your heels, drawing your chest towards your thighs, then do, but just stay where your body feels safe. Okay, and everyone bring your hands into your hips and then bending your knees all the way up if you need to come up into a standing position. And then just move the blocks out of the way for a moment and then come up into Tadasana. So just spend a few moments just taking deep inhalations and exhalations. Be in Tadasana. So be conscious of your posture, from your feet to the legs, to the hips, to the chest, to the shoulders, to the arms, to the neck, to the head, to the hands. Just breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath, observing how your feet make connection with the ground. Is it the outside edge of your feet that bear the weight of the legs, or the centre of the heel? So turn the shins inwards, turn the knees inwards, turn the thighs inwards, hit the weight of your legs back into the heels. Push the inner knees away from each other. Lift up into the chest. Filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards your chest, and then step or jump your feet nice and wide for trikonasana. Turn your left toes in and your right leg and foot all the way out. And then come over into your trikonasana. So it's no coincidence that we often do trikonasana first as our first standing pose, because there's usefulness in familiarity. So you can feel as you come into the pose how your body is responding. You know how to activate your legs, hopefully. You know how to activate the spine, and you know how to activate the arms. So go into the pose and just observe how your body is responding to this uber familiar pose. We've been doing these online classes now for over 4 years, isn't it? So we've done trikonasana nearly every morning for 4 years, or every weekday morning anyway. And so that brings familiarity. But do you do the pose and just let the mind wander around aimlessly? Or do you do the pose and draw your attention into the physical pose, into the physical sensations of the pose? Come back to the center, swap the feet around, turn the right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out, and then come over to the side. So there's always a danger when we do familiar poses that we do it by rote. That we kind of feel like, oh yeah, I know this pose, yeah, whatever, it's just trikonasana, I'll just wait until we come out of it. But actually that's missing the point. Be inside your pose now. Because the pose, along with familiarity, it brings initiation of the mind and the body and the breath. So if you're doing a pose that you're familiar with, you're not so worried about where the legs are going, where the arms are going, but you can just bring your attention inwards, into the legs, into the spine, into the arms, into the head, into the breath. Come back to the center, bring the feet parallel, and then step or jump the feet back together, and then come back into Tadasana. Just listen to the sound of the breath. Just bring the breath back to a normal rhythm. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards your chest, and then step or jump your feet a little wider than last time. Turn your left toes in, your right leg and foot all the way out, lift up into the chest, spread your toes and keep that back leg straight as you bend the front leg. Bend and descend that front leg for Virabhadrasana 2. So this pose we've done many times, but maybe not as many as trikonasana. Just feel your way into it. So maybe there's effort in the legs, push the effort into the feet. Lift out of the hips up into the chest. Find a right angle with that front leg. Keep the back leg really firmly engaged. Straighten the legs. Just come back to the center. Release your hands for a second. Turn the right toes in. And your left leg all the way out. Come back to the center. Really engage the feet on the floor. Lift from the feet up into the hips. Extend the arms outwards. Keep that back leg straight. Keep the spine directly driving itself up to 12 o'clock. And then bend that front knee. Find your right angle. But don't forget about the back leg. Look over the middle finger of the right hand. If it feels strong in the thigh, then push into the feet. Both legs. Keep the jaw and the tongue and the throat soft. Okay, straighten the front leg, bring the feet parallel, and then step or jump your feet back together, and then come back up into Tadasana. Just observe how Virabhadrasana 2 perhaps raises the heart rate a little. So just spend a little time in your Tadasana, just focusing on the breath. So not trying to slow the breath down, just to allow the breath to be deep and full. So when we do strenuous poses, turn the palms all the way out. And the body uses the oxygen in the blood more rapidly, and you need to exhale more regularly, because the body uses the oxygen and produces more carbon dioxide. So the body needs to breathe more deeply when you make deeper effort. But all the time, if in the pose you can stabilize your breath in those more challenging of poses, then you don't get tired. You energize yourself. And then just gently release the arms, release the legs. Maybe your heart rate has gone back to normal. So just sit back on your heels. So we're going to do the kind of opening moments of pavritta trikonasana, pavritta parsvakonasana. We're going to do the cheats version though, so that's kind of easier to get into. But just before we do that, just lift up into the chest. So this is a pose that we do really, really rarely. And so just think about when you're in the pose, how a new or newer pose challenges you mentally, because you're kind of worrying about where the legs are, where the arms are, and all that kind of thing. And whether you can draw your consciousness beyond that unfamiliarity and just find the familiarity within the limbs, within the physical body. Because it's still, of course, your body. It's just in a different position. So I'm just going to do this way so that you can see better what we're doing. Okay, so you're going to come up onto your knee. I'll show you first. You're going to come up onto your knees. You're going to bring the right leg forward, and then you're just going to turn. So that is the first stage. So just come up onto so you're kneeling on your left knee, bring the right knee forward, and then you're just going to turn the abdomen from the left to the right, lifting up into the chest. So just come into this first stage, lifting up into the chest and turning. Just lift up into the chest. Feel how the shin makes contact with the floor. Press the foot, that right foot into the floor so that the pose feels stable. And turn. And then uncoil and then just sit back on your heels. So if it feels uncomfortable on your knees, then you can kind of do this on, you can put your knees or your shins on a folded blanket. So let's do the other side. Just come up to the first stage, bring the left leg forwards this time. Lift up into the chest, keep the chest lifted and long, and then turn to the left. Drawing your abdomen from the right to the left. Have this other hand in the small of the back. Just gently turning. Lifting up into the spine. Going back to the shin. Connecting that into the ground. Go back to the left foot. Pressing that firmly into the floor to give you stability in this unfamiliar pose. Just spend a moment in the pose, just observing the activation of your legs and your spine, your arms and your neck and your head. And then come back to the center and then just sit back down on your heels. So I'm going to show you the next stage. I'm not sure, Kat, if this is going to be good for you because there's a lot of kind of abdominal constriction, but let me show you first and you obviously make your mind up for yourself. But if it's not right for you, then you just do the version that we've just done. So the next stage is where we come forward, we lift up and turn the chest, and then we bring the left elbow down onto the inside of the knee, and then you reach down. If you can't reach the floor, you have a block. So there's this turn of the chest and this really good action of pushing the elbow into the hand, and keep the back hand on the small of the back. Turn the toes under with that back leg, and then we straighten that back leg, turning the chest, lengthening the spine, and turning the chest. So that's not the entire pose, because then eventually you stretch your arm over. But let's just do that stage of the pose. So quite a lot of constriction in the abdomen. If you need to avoid that, or if you would prefer to avoid that, just do the first stage. That's absolutely fine. So have a block to reach if you feel like you might need it. So just sit back on your heels, lift up into the chest, and come up onto your knees, bringing your right knee forward. And then extend the spine upwards. And then turn. So we always extend the spine before turning, and then it feels more comfortable on the neck, on the chest, on the spine. Lift up into the chest, and then come forwards over that knee, keeping the spine long, and then see, can you bring your elbow into the outside of the knee? Bring the other hand into the small of the back, and then extend the spine and turn. Really feel that you can turn into pose. Feel where the feet are, feel where the shin of that back leg is, to find that stability. Then see if you can reach down, find your hand on a block. So however you need your block, use it that way. Bring that hand onto that block, turn the chest, and then turn the toes under that back leg, and then straighten that back leg, lengthen the spine, and turn. So you straighten that back leg, and then you extend into the spine. Okay, and then just gently uncoil and sit back on your heels. So quite intense. Just come back onto your heels, just observe how your energy has distributed itself. Take conscious deep inhalations and exhalations. Just listen to the breath. Just letting your energy settle. So maybe your energy feels right-sided rather than left. And that's because we've done all that work on the right side. So you can spend a little time just to distribute that with your breath. And come up onto your knees. Bring your left knee forwards. Have the block on the outside of the left knee. So your hands on your hips, and then really lengthen up into the chest. Feel where that foot of the left foot is pressing into the floor. Feel the right shin, and then bring your hand onto the outside of the left knee, and then turn to the left. Just extending the spine before turning, and then you have space in the spine. Come forwards with an extended spine. Bring your elbow onto the outside of the knee, and then work to draw your abdomen across a little more. Reach down, find the block with your hand, have the other hand in the small of the back, turn the toes under, and then straighten that back leg. Extend the spine as you turn it. Try and get the top shoulder to rotate so the wall behind you. Keep that back leg straight. And then uncoil, and then just sit back on your heels. And then just observe your energy. So pretty strenuous, isn't it? Observe whether you breathed. Observe whether you're breathing now. So again, it's a pose that increases your heart rate a little. So spend a little time just observing your breath. And rather than trying to breathe more quickly to accommodate that breath, just breathe more deeply if you can. Just filling the lungs all the way to the top and emptying them all the way to the bottom. Just observe your energy. Maybe your energy feels a little more even. Come down onto your heels. Stretch the arms forwards. Extend into Adho Mukha Virasana. So we go back to the preface that we began with, or even premise that we began with. When we were in Trikonasana, we were within the realms of deep familiarity. And so within that familiarity, we can go more deep into the pose because we kind of know where the arms and the legs are supposed to be. But in pavritta parsvakonasana, it's a pose that we've done rarely. And it's actually a really good pose. It's a really energizing pose. It just stretches out your back. But the unfamiliarity of it, how does that affect your immersion into it? So maybe when we were turning, you were considering that to extend into the spine helps the turn. But maybe you lost the back leg because you weren't sure where the back leg was. I mean, of course, the back leg was attached to your hip, but what were you doing with that back leg? Could you concentrate? Could you focus? Could you draw your consciousness into that back leg? Up onto your knees. Have your hands shoulder width apart. Turn your toes under. Have your feet hip width apart. And come up into dog down. Again, a pose we have done every day for at least 4 years. Lots of you have been doing yoga for much longer than we've been doing these classes. In fact, I think you all have. So you've done 1,000 dog downs before. How does this one feel? Observe how the familiarity just brings kind of deeper ability to engage with the physical body. Engage with the sensation of the pose. You know how your body usually feels in dog down. And so you can activate it. You know how to activate it. But maybe you knew how to activate it yesterday. Do you know how to activate it today? Just come down onto your knees, sit back on your heels. And just observe your energy. Maybe your body feels full of energy. Like you've pressed the soda stream button. And you've pumped lots of air into the body. Ironically, actually, soda stream is pumping carbon dioxide into the water, isn't it? But don't worry about that. Just let's go with the analogy. Let's not think about it too much, like I'm doing now, so stop. Just feel the lightness of your energy pulsing through the blood and through the limbs, through the muscles, observing how you have woken up your muscles. And then come onto all fours for rajakapotasana. Bring your right knee to make contact with the right wrist. Bring the right foot underneath the left thigh, the left hip, and then stretch that left leg away. Come up onto the fingertips and turn that back leg like you're doing Tadasana. Turn in the front of the thigh from the outer hip to the inner hip so that the back of the thigh rotates from the inner thigh to the outer, out into the hip, and then lengthen up into the spine. Just an energizing back bend that opens up the hips. See if you can really lift the abdomen to the diaphragm, to the collarbone, to the chin. Stretching out that left side of the abdomen. And then bring the palms down. Turn your toes under that back leg. And then come up into just all fours. Have your hands underneath your shoulders. Knees underneath your hips. And then bring your left knee to make contact with the left wrist. Bring the left foot underneath that right thigh and hip. And then stretch the right leg. That right leg away. As much as you can. And then turn that right thigh so that the front of the thigh turns inwards. The back of the thigh rotates from the inner thigh to the outer hip. And then lift up into the chest. Feeling the right side of the abdomen really stretch out. And then bring the palms just flat into the floor, turn the toes under, and then walk in, just come back onto all fours, sit back on your heels, and then just again stretch forward into Adho Mukha Virasana. So again, familiarity. How does this pose feel as opposed to pavritta, parsvakonasana? Bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Push yourself up into Virasana. And then just sit yourself in cross legs. So if you need to sit on a lift, then by all means do, just hold on to your knees. Elevate the heart area upwards, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. And then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across your ribs and your shoulders. Come back to the center. Hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest, and then turn to the left. And then come back to the center. Hold onto your knees, lift up into your chest. Just observing the quietness of this half padmasana swastikasana position. And then come down onto your back. Just come down onto your back, have a blanket from underneath your head. And then just hold onto your knees. Hold onto the sides of the mat. Pull your knees in toward your chest. And then raise your legs up to the ceiling. Just observing the physical sensation of the pose. Observing the energy that is effervescing underneath the skin. Filling the muscles with lightness. It's not just of the legs, it's easy to just observe the legs because they're the part doing most of the work. But draw your attention into the spine, into the chest, into the arms, into the head. Just observe what is happening in those subtler areas. Are you extending the spine consciously by holding onto the sides of the mat and then lengthening the spine from the tailbone, lifting the chest? As soon as you start to draw your consciousness away from the area that's kind of really screaming for your attention, then that screaming for attention becomes quieter, more manageable. Doesn't mean it disappears, it just means that it becomes more manageable, more relative. And then release the knees, bend the knees, bring the feet back down onto the floor. Stretch your legs out, just come up onto your elbows. Just make sure you're in a really good straight line, right down the centre of your mat. And then guide yourself back down, supporting the back of your neck as well as your head. And then let the feet fall apart. Let the feet fall apart, let the arms just rest into the floor, let the body become heavy. Maybe the body's already full of lightness, so heaviness maybe feels like a juxtaposition. but just observe the heaviness of the body, how the floor supports the skin and the bones, and then draw your consciousness back into that feeling of energy that radiates out from the bones, inflating the muscles with positive energy. Your bones radiating positive energy into the organs. Into the flesh, positive energy feeling out into the flesh and into the skin. Using your in-breath and your out-breath to distribute that energy down the legs into the toes, up into the torso, down the arms into the fingertips, and all the way up into the neck and into the top of the head. Just basking in that feeling of energetic lightness. Just gently wriggle your toes, wriggle your fingers. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Pull your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom. Just a gentle massage on the spine. And then just gently roll onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then when you're ready, just gently stretch out that top leg. Come back up into a seated position. Just a final cross legs with your hands in Namaste. Just a final spinal lift. Bring your hands into Namaste. Just close your eyes and draw your breath in through your nose down into the abdominal region, into the samanic region, into the belly button. Conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends and the twists and the inversions and the back bends bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to make contact with the chest. Just spend a moment to acknowledge the positive energy you have created inside. And then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then gently release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards, with the index finger in contact with the thumb, just a gesture of wisdom and intelligence, of body intelligence, of emotional intelligence, of intellectual intelligence, and peacefulness that we can bring into our day. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open, and the focus of your eyes to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel as though you have really lifted your energy, giving yourself that good, positive, effervescent energy that you need to put into your day for focus and positive action. So thank you very much for joining me.